Hi, everyone. Mike Malatesta here, and welcome back to the How Did Happen podcast. On this podcast, I dig in deep with every guest to explore the roots of their success, to discover not just how it happened, but why it matters. My mission is to find and share stories that inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you. On today's episode, I'm talking to Charles Byrd, an amazing relationship expert who specializes in helping people create super successful joint venture partnerships, something I'm always interested in doing. We talk about why now is the time to take action, the parallels between being successful in a band and with joint ventures, the power of the ping, you're gonna like that, and why you should always prioritize people and relationships.
What I would highly encourage people to consider in this process, it's way better to take any action than no action. Even if the action you take ends up, quite honestly, being the opposite of where you head to, action is key. Sitting on the sidelines, trying to pick the perfect strategy, pick the perfect thing, do it by yourself, it will never work. You have to start taking action, having conversations, and surrounding yourself by the people who will stretch your thinking.
A ton of value is coming your way in this podcast, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hey, Charles, welcome to the podcast. So before I tell you all a little bit more about Charles, I just wanted to tell you this. And this happens every so often, but I listen to a bunch of podcasts and I happen to come across certain people who, as I'm listening to them, I'm walking the dog, I'm walking Riley, and I'm just taking it all in. And my body feels a little bit different than it did before I started listening to the person. And I don't want to be weird or anything about it, but Charles is one of those people. The very first time I heard him on a podcast, I thought to myself, this guy is speaking in a way that I am eager to listen. And it doesn't happen all the time. A lot of people talk and I'm willing to listen, but I'm not eager to listen. And even if they could be the most interesting people, but they just are not connecting with me on that, whatever level that is. And Charles connected with me on that level when I first heard him. And I've heard him several times since, and it's never changed. It's always made me feel the same way, and I hope you feel the same way after listening to him today. He's got a real skill set, or maybe it's not a skill set, maybe it's just genetic, but whatever it is, it's cool. So just wanted to put that out there first. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about Charles Byrd, B-Y-R-D, by the way. Charles Byrd is a human lead magnet and super connector with a deep background in joint ventures, lead flow, and he's a frictionless systems expert. And I definitely want to dig into that. He's also an entrepreneur, speaker, author, trainer, strategist, adventure lover, runner, and skateboarder. The first person that I've had on the program with skateboarder in, as part of the bio or your LinkedIn profile. So that makes you unique as well. Charles's work on relationships, joint ventures, and frictionless systems has been featured in Forbes, ABC News, SiriusXM, Funnel Magazine, The Science of Success, and all kinds of places. He's been on lots and lots of podcasts because he just has tremendous value. And his new book is called Internet Marketing Secrets. It's an Amazon bestseller. You can connect with Charles at his website, which is his name, Charles Byrd, BYRD.com. Okay, Charles, I start every podcast with the same question for the guest, and that is, how did it happen for you?
How it happened for me. Okay, so I'll give a little backstory and then get straight into, what I do today and how I serve. So I worked in the Silicon Valley for 15 years. I was a director at a $1 billion software company. And this is like pretty much first job out of college. Starting on a help desk and then heading into project management, program management, and eventually founding my own department. But I was always very intrigued by the entrepreneur lifestyle and the freedom. I read about that in books and the impact that entrepreneurs are able to make. Like I was choosing the technology and running the projects, the training and so forth for a 6,000 person enterprise, but I wanted to reach a lot more people. And the truth is I was a little too comfortable to do that. I'd created some startups and worked with friends and team members on those ideas while working full time. And it was way too hard to get traction that way because your focus is so split. And really the catalyst for this was a story about my mom. She was an OB nurse. She taught at College of the Sequoias. She ran a hospital in Central California. And one day I got a call from her and she had that serious tone in her voice. So I thought maybe one of the kids she adopted from South Africa were having trouble in school or something like that. But she'd actually been in a minor car accident the day before. She thought she was pressing the brake, but wasn't, and bumped into the car in front of her. And then the next day she was reaching for a fork and physically kept missing it by 6 inches, which alarmed them. So took her to the hospital, found she had 2 stage 4 brain tumors. And I could barely walk in the house to tell my family this. It felt like a truck ran over me, and we piled in the car, drove to be with her going into brain surgery that night. And I effectively moved the family there for a year to take care of her. And my mom lived 1 year to the day from when I got that call. And to me, it was the most obviously painful and difficult, but it clarified for me how short life is, and how if there's an impact you want to make, if there's a quality of life you want for yourself and your family, now is the time to take action on that. It's like a glaring spotlight on taking action now and actually designing the life and impact you want, because this is your one shot to do it. I had this piece of wood made. It says, I can, I will, end of story. Meaning I am figuring this out no matter what. This is a burn the boats. There is no plan B. Because I was getting loving guidance from people like my dad. Go get your next job and start your business when you're retired. And I'm like, what?
Right.
That makes no sense to me. And so I went for it. And so my first product was a low ticket productivity course. And being new to the online space, I didn't yet have a list or connections. So started going to a lot of events and connecting with people online, and quickly found my new peer group of entrepreneurs already had my ideal clients in their communities. So I started setting up presentations for other people's audiences, delivering a high value training and offering the deeper dive course, and started growing the list quickly, making sales, making a positive impact. So I thought, since this is working, what if I take my IT and systems background and simplify and systematize the entire joint venture process, which I did. And eventually people wondered how I book 2 to 6 joint venture promotions per week for my own offers. And I was at a mastermind in Aspen, and my phone's blowing up with texts and messenger messages and people knocking on the room door going, how do you book so many of these? So I decided to put together my first high ticket event called Pure JV, teaching businesses how to scale, getting in front of their ideal clients, leveraging other people's audiences. And that's the market I've been serving ever since. So I help companies create a unique JV strategy for their particular product and market, help them identify their most profitable partners, show them how to connect to those partners through warm channels. Mm-hmm. So you're showing up high on their radar instead of reaching out cold and no one knows who you are. My favorite part, how to guide the conversations to land the deals in as little as 20 minutes, and then operationally how to execute those deals, along with turning each one into 2 or 3 more. And 8 of my clients within a year of our work added 1.25 to 6 million in additional revenue. And the same framework of listening to what people are trying to achieve, provide value first in helping them achieve that faster, and teeing up deals and referrals and speaking opportunities and so forth from that. It just never ends in the upside. It just grows and grows and grows and grows. One of my clients, a gentleman named Dr. Reagan Archibald, who I just did a presentation for all the doctors in his group, from his very first JV that we're lining up, which he's partnering with high-end masterminds. And another client of mine, Justin Donnell of Lifestyle Investor, he has 135 people in a 55K investment mastermind. And the model is to partner with Dr. Reagan, and they're running that mastermind from Dr. Reagan's facility in Utah. So all of these investor folks are going to get brain scans, blood work. They're going to learn so much about their health in a proactive way so they can live long, healthy, happy lives. And so he's going to make a significant positive impact for those folks. And all the while, his whole facility will be full of ideal clients. So he'll do some quite significant numbers just from his very first JV.
When you first decided, after your mom's health incident to, create this productivity tool, first of all, how did you come to that? And second of all, like the online, the tool and sort of focusing on online marketing. And then, a lot of people would have the idea that you have like, hey, I'm going to connect with these people and I don't really have a network. I don't have a mailing list, as you said. I'm coming out of the corporate, startup world where I've been successful, but I don't have the tools that I really feel I need to be confident moving forward. And yet you did. Where did that come from? And how can you help us who are where you are in the mind, but won't, afraid to take the step, for example?
Wonderful question. Okay. So I knew I wanted to create a company. I didn't even know what it would be about, quite honestly. So it was like that goal of creating something. And I had a friend from college who married the love of his life. He's a nurse and got an MBA. And then they started a wooden sunglasses company. And he was the first person from my peer group to start a business and not work for someone else. And that company 2 or 3 years later was kicking butt. And then they started another company, a wooden watch company. That one superseded the first one in 5 months or something. And by the time they were buying their third building in San Francisco, I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. So because again, you can read about these things, but if you don't have someone to model, it feels like it's for other people.
Right.
And so there's a big distinction going, wait a minute, if they can do it, so can I. So I met with my friend Joe and his wife, and I was like, how do I get in this building wooden products game? It seems to be working out for you. And they were like, do not do this. You should do digital products. So you're not dealing with shipping and sourcing and manufacturing and all of this. They're like, work with digital products. And a big bell went off in my head. It was like almost a cartoon moment because I was already doing trainings for a 6,000 person enterprise. I was already doing some work on video. So I basically had a lot of the competencies needed to do it. And my process for choosing my first product, I wouldn't call it particularly scientific. I will explain it. And it is how it happened. I listed out 40 things that I was either good at or interested in. And then I narrowed that down and said, what are you actually good at? So then the list shrank to around 12 topics. And then I just asked myself, what's been the most impactful for me that I think is useful and I like it. And I landed on the productivity topic. And then I did one Google search to see if there were other products like this. And there were, and I was like, let's do that. So I picked it that was as much detailed research as I did. And then just started, I was asked to speak at a real estate conference because I was like, I can help all these investors manage their information a lot better. So I put together a talk over like a weekend, and then I created an outline for the course. So I did not create a course. I created an outline for a course. And for anyone listening who's interested in this kind of thing, now you could do that in seconds with ChatGPT. So there's really no excuse to not play around with these kind of things because the barrier to entry is plummeting. So from the stage, I offered the course and then ran it live over 4 weeks. So I did an hour of training every week for 4 weeks. So this is how you get paid to create a product. So I got, not that I made a lot, but I did get paid to create that product. Then I chopped it into smaller modules, shot some cleaner on camera, intros to the modules, had to, figure out the tech side of how to host that and so forth. And then since I had that stage talk, now I had a talk that provides value that leads into the program, and I had the program. And then I just dialed that in with joint ventures and systematized that process. And I got so good at marketing it through joint ventures. That's when other people were like, how do you do that? So I ran both concurrently for a while, the productivity topic and the joint venture topic. And when I partnered with my business partner, Bill Barron, he was like, pick a lane. You can't be the JV guy and the productivity guy. Pick a lane. And I'm like, JVs, baby. Which was an excellent choice. And then the results I was getting, now I was able to replicate that with other people and clients in an offer that this will be a good differentiating point for people thinking of creating products. And there's all kinds of different products that are needed in the world, but an offer that leads to more money for people is way easier to sell. So as an example, Dr. Reagan's invested many thousand in me, and he'll 10x his return on his first JV, which I'm not saying everyone will run out and do that. But point being, it's pretty easy to sell things that make people money very quickly in super strong, ethical ways where everyone truly is coming out further ahead. So that's kind of encapsulating productivity systems and mindset, but around the type of offer that drives revenue. I'd also like to put a thought in people's head. Originally, I was also thinking of making a video production company because I like doing video work. And so I'm going back in the story a little bit.
Okay.
But
so when?
Oh, like when I was still trying to figure out what my product would be.
Okay.
And I'd been producing commercials for an enterprise level company and things like that. And I enjoyed it. But then I realized each video I would make is a completely separate project that requires reinventing the wheel every time. Whereas making a course or program, I could make certain assets that I could sell over and over and over again. And the same is true for my Pure JV one-on-one consulting offer. I'm walking people through the same 5-week framework. I'm not reinventing the wheel at all. We're just applying it to their particular business. Because people can rent your brain as a consultant and wrap you into their world and their problems. And you can solve one thing for this client, solve a different thing for that client, or you can make a solution that is end-to-end for a certain kind of avatar or client base, and it will simplify your life immensely. So I would highly recommend not renting out your brain. Solve some problems for people and turn that into a signature product and workflow, and it works really well.
Well, I want to dive sort of headfirst into that, but before I do, I just want to go back to a couple of things that you said. And you, with your mom, for example, you mentioned that she had adopted kids from, I think you said South Africa.
Yeah, Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone. And was that something that was happening while you were growing up as well?
No, it was after my brother and I were out of the house by many years. And but they were high school and heading into college age when she passed away. In fact, one of my sisters moved in with my wife and kids and I to take care of her while she was going to school.
Okay.
So yeah, they were many years younger and needed support and guidance.
Okay. And where are they now? Do you keep in touch?
Yeah. My sister Marianne lives about 2.5 hours from here. She's got an amazing husband named Peter. He's European. In fact, Peter was out here 2 weeks ago. We went out to a show for my wife's birthday.
Yeah.
So I'm mostly in touch with her. The other sister's a little more keeps to herself. But
okay.
But yeah.
And before you mentioned that was it Cadence that you worked for?
That's right. Cadence Design Systems.
Cadence Design, and you said it was pretty much right out of school you went there. I'm curious because we mentioned the skateboarder thing earlier. What's the earlier version of Charles before Cadence and Silicon Valley came along?
Well, of course, going to school and so forth, grew up riding skateboards from the age of 10 in Central California and got quite into it. So yeah, I ride to this day. I wouldn't say super often, but every couple months you can find me at a skate park riding on pools or taking my daughters. I was teaching my daughter how to ride a half pipe a few weeks ago, which was a
nice.
blast. And we ride around on one wheels and electric unicycles. These are powered devices. So we've got everyone in my family, everyone in my brother's family who lives 3 houses down, and then a group of friends. And so like 10 of us or 15 will go there and through Napa or other places like that, which is a blast. So yeah, grew up riding skateboards, also played in a band for 15 years with my brother. Actually, when I was just in New Orleans, I bought a new metal guitar that they're shipping. But yeah, so played drums, guitar.
Nice. What was the band name?
The band name was In8, the letter in, the number 8. And then, so we played under that name for basically 12 years. And then for the last 3 years, it was Charles Byrd. And so it was me and my brother, one of our friends who lives in Napa that we were just camping with a few weeks ago with their whole family. But yeah, at our peak, we were doing around 75 shows a year.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So it was basically a show or two every weekend. I will point out, being a marketer pays way better.
Yeah. Well, what if you got to market yourself to get on stages though, as a musician, or is there parallels between your experience with the band and doing what you're doing now?
You know what? You're the first person to ever put those two things together. I've thought it many times because yeah, it's very much like joint ventures, and I'll share the parallels. To book shows, you need to know the venues that are hot. Where are the great places to play that like the kind of music that you play? The same with joint ventures. Who are the adjacent markets who already have your ideal clients there, like in their communities? It's in joint venture land, it's connecting with the entrepreneur or leader of a group, booking stages. It's who's the booking manager. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, in the music world, booking managers are some of the flakiest people on planet Earth. So there were venues in San Francisco I would contact 35 plus times to get a gig booked. It's like ridiculous. So that perseverance of follow-up and follow-through, I guarantee helps me today, because many times in the joint venture world, you'll reach out to someone and you don't hear back, even if they're a friend. And you're like, oh, well, I wonder if something's changed. What's changed is they're busy that day. There's nothing wrong with you. It's the fact we all have busy lives.
Right.
So we tell ourselves stories. Well, I reached out 2 times. I guess that one's not going to work out. Completely not true. So having the perseverance of systematic follow through. And then you're right, there's the marketing aspect and the creativity aspect. Like we shoot music videos and do photo shoots and buy cool, crazy clothes. I was just at the New Orleans Jazz Festival the last 3 days and bought some crazy outfits for Beta Breakers and Burning Man and things like that. So there's lots of adventure to be had on the way. So I've always sought to engineer a life that you're not working hard for the sake of working hard. You're working to create a quality of life and show others how to achieve that as well. So modeling it, and which has been amazing. I have 2 daughters, entrepreneur-minded, amazing daughters, 12 and 15. And I just flew in last night. So my oldest daughter saw me this morning, jumps around me, arms and legs. Like we go on so many fun family adventures between my work trips that it's all about engineering a life of a satisfying quality of life where you're contributing and having a high quality of life for the people in your world and your own family.
Right.
So yeah, because I'm in a lot of groups where surprisingly that's news to a lot of people. They'll tell these stories about how they've made their $200 million. They're on their 3rd marriage. Their kids don't talk to them. And then you're like, well, clearly you failed at life because the money's not going to help.
Right.
So point being, like, engineering up front around the kind of life you want. And I don't mean to sound critical, but it's just true. A lot of people don't get the memo for a while.
Well, you mentioned early on when you were answering the how to happen question that you'd been intrigued by the freedom that comes with being an entrepreneur, and you just came back to it with those stories, right? That's really about you creating a life that provides a lot of value to your clients and customers, but also gives you the freedom to do maybe not what you want all the time, but what you want a lot more than the average person, right?
That's true, which was actually a reason I wanted to engineer that. I actually say, I reference it that way. I wanted the freedom I read about in books. And every time I say that on a call, the party on the other side snickers as though it's
Not
like
possible.
not true.
Yeah.
But it has been 1,000% true for me. It's not to say I don't work hard, but I'm constantly out. Like, we were in the French Quarter of New Orleans, running around, eating pastries and enjoying the art in shops and sipping champagne. Like, it makes life super fun. So I like engineering those things.
Yeah.
And one way to do that, for anyone who's like, sounds nice, how do you do that? You simply book things out a ways, and the clock comes around and you go, and be open to adventure. One of my friends who invited me to do a JV workshop for her top partners, which I did yesterday, she invited us to go to the music festival and cruise around. And she's like, I wanted to invite you because I knew you'd say yes, meaning someone who says yes to cool things, and then you make them happen.
And the story you told about the person with, a couple $100 million, but their relationships are suffering and this and that. Do you think that, and the snicker of people when you say that, do you think that there's this fear that if you stop, say, making money, being focused on making money for even a moment or more than a few moments, it just might go away. You just might lose it, or you just might not feel validated, or you just might feel lost, or I don't know. What do you think? Because it's easy to say, "Oh, Charles, that's BS." That I got a business to run. That I can see a lot of people say, "I got a business to run. I can't be, doing the things that you just talked about." But I think sometimes, and I think I was like that, and I maybe still am from time to time when it took me a long time to get past the notion that if I do something that I've earned, that's not me coming into the office and working for 10 hours that day. It's not as though I've failed, or it's not as though I'm lost, or I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that kind of thing. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah. So it's how you engineer a business to run. And the truth is, if I stopped doing what I do, this business wouldn't continue to function, which is why I'm consciously engineering some updates to the model. And what I mean by that is, I was hanging out with Dan Martell last year, and one of the things he said is, get yourself out of the fulfillment of your offer so you can just focus on connecting with people and speaking and things like that. And so I hired on a lovely woman who's worked for me a few other times. She used to book the JVs for Brian Tracy and Jack Canfield and people like that. And so I've had, of the 5 sessions people get with me in my core engagement, now I'm only doing 2 of them. The team's handling the rest. And point being, you can engineer a business to not depend on you. Another friend of mine who has put a deposit in to work with me, he's creating this new startup. And last time I talked to him, turns out he's got another company, a $3 million company, that he's got a CEO running. He doesn't do anything. Like, the company runs itself because he's engineered it to do that. So that idea of not, will things just stop if you stop? It depends how you've structured the business, and just know that there are models that I'm still figuring some of that out. Okay. But there's certainly models that don't require you to keep the song and dance going, as it were.
Yeah.
And then there's that internal thing. In the past, certainly not these days, and hopefully it doesn't come back, but in the past, if I would go on a trip, like a personal trip, it would take 2 or 3 days to get out of work mode and into that vacation mode. And then next thing you know, you're back to the work mode and you need a vacation from the vacation. I'm not exactly sure what shifted in me on that, but it's not particularly like that anymore. But it's good to be aware of these things. And I just recommend scheduling little weekend getaways with your significant others. Schedule camping trips or fun things with your kids. And I want those scheduled as the priority and the other trips to fill in around it. And not that everyone's going to travel as much as I do, but as long as you're getting that deep quality family time in, then everything else functions really well. It's just when people prioritize the work over taking care of themselves, working out, eating healthy, certainly prioritizing sleep, and then prioritizing time with the family. When you have those priorities in place, everything else runs dramatically smoother.
Yeah. And that's so smart, because the other side to that coin is I'll do it as soon as I can work it in. And it's very difficult to work it in because you naturally fill gaps in your schedule, or someone else does when they expect that that's what you want them to do, like you're at work or something, they fill gaps for you. So if you create this schedule in advance and, like you said, allow people to fill in around it, as opposed to I'll get to the vacation, or I'll get to spending time with my children, or I'll get to spending time with my wife at some point, instead of making it part of the schedule, it's often a losing battle, just hard.
Yeah. It's like
right?
that Stephen Covey big rocks principle. You put in the big rocks first, then the pebbles, then the sand, then the water.
Yeah.
And frequently, like if you were to look at my schedule this week, it's pretty wild because I've been traveling. But 2-3 weeks from now, the schedule's a lot more open. So you can put these things in and make them work. And also blocking time on the calendar for actual working time, so you're not stuck in meetings all day, or having habit structures so that, like in my morning routine, I wake up, get coffee, go on a run. Simple things where you remove the debate from your head by having systems.
Yep.
So I don't have the debate, am I going to work out today? The answer, the question is, what workout am I doing this morning? Like, I know I'm doing a workout every morning. Now I don't have to debate myself. No, we'll do it tomorrow.
Yes. Right. Very smart. I wanted to go back to another thing you said, which was about this list. You talked about making a list of the things that you liked and were good at, and it started at this number, and you kept whittling it down to the things that you were really good at. I felt like when you said that, I was like, that's a great exercise for anyone to do. But then I wanted to ask you, well, how long did that take? How long did you reflect on that list to get it to where you ultimately were like, yes, these are the things?
Well, the reason I'm laughing is I probably did all of that in less than an hour.
Okay.
It was just like pop in and get it done. What I would highly encourage people to consider in this process is it's way better to take any action than no action. Even if the action you take ends up, quite honestly, being the opposite of where you head to, action is key. Sitting on the sidelines, trying to pick the perfect strategy, pick the perfect thing, do it by yourself, it will never work. You have to start taking action, having conversations, and surrounding yourself by the people who will stretch your thinking. I want to share another early story of I went to 2 back-to-back events in Austin, like when I was brand new to the space, as clueless as you could be. And I was at an event called 7-Figure Systems. And one of the exercises is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? How much money will you be making then? And I'm coming off a pretty good corporate salary. And so I write in there 500,000. And like, it felt almost fake to me. Like, I'm just making up dumb numbers.
Like, I think I should go high here because of the way the question's being asked of me, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was like, where do I see myself in 5 years? I'm like, I'll be making 500,000. And this doctor was sitting next to me. He leans over. He's like, 500,000, huh? And I'm like, yeah, that's right. 500,000. He's like, you do realize this event is called Seven Figure Systems. And what it did is stretch the fabric of what I believe was possible. It was tearing open possibility in my brain that couldn't even comprehend that. It would seem like pie in the sky made up numbers. And then I realized the gentleman over here is making 3 million a year. The guy here is making 11 million a year. This guy's at 900 grand or whatever he was at. But like, wait a minute, they're here and they're doing that. Why can't I? And it really opened up my awareness as to what's possible. And then a continuous theme is surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to be doing and are further along. Ideally, you're typically around people who are doing dramatically better in their thinking and performance, because it constantly up levels your modeling. You're seeing them execute. You're hearing how they think, and stretching the fabric of your own brain, which gives you that awareness and belief, and then you pursue it. If you have people pulling you down, saying you can't do stuff, they're the wrong people to be around.
Right, for sure. And people who are leaning over your shoulder and saying, hey, Charles, this is 7-figure land, or whatever they are saying that raises your expectations for yourself, is super helpful too, because most people will do what you did. They'll say, well, if I could, what do they say? 2 times versus 10 times, right? If I could 2 times what I'm doing, that would be like the best ever, right? And someone says, well, 10 times is maybe as easy as 2 times. If you do 10 times, if you go for 10 times and you end up at 2, that's pretty good. Or you end up at 3, you blew yourself away already.
Yeah, it's like Ben Hardy's new book.
Yeah.
And he was messaging me a few weeks ago on that. It's like, it's brilliant to stretch what you believe is possible and go from there. It's been a fun evolution.
I want to get back to the joint ventures now. You mentioned Dr. Archibald. You took us through that story a little bit. And what I thought when you were taking us through that was that a lot of people listening, I have a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders that listen to the podcast, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, and I'm thinking for me too, like, how do I, and the doctor's a great example, because most doctors, at least the ones that we are aware of, are in a system where they are essentially, every 15 minutes, they have to be seeing somebody. It doesn't seem like much freedom. And it also doesn't seem like an opportunity where you can reach out to another person's network and provide value to them in a joint venture type of way. So my question really is there anyone, or is joint venture potential available to anyone? And if so, like Dr. Archibald, you mentioned, how would you recommend that someone think about joint venture opportunities if they've never thought about it before?
Right. And so let's start by defining that a little more for people. And there's many models for doing joint ventures. But if you're like me and many people who this is a new concept for, you think of a joint venture as like some legal entity of 2 companies merging and doing stuff. And of course it can be that, but that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about promotional partnerships. It's someone who already has your ideal client. I'll use an example of Brian Tracy. And again, there's a lot of models for this. This is just one of them. So Brian's got a list of 500,000 people he's developed, teaching them sales strategy, high performance, mindset kinds of topics. And he's promoted me 7 times. He mails 500,000 people, inviting them to a training I'm putting on just for their audience that's congruent with his messaging. Building high quality relationships, having really tight systems, creating deal flow that leads into his kind of sales training process. It's a highly complimentary message for what he has created in his legacy of work, his body of work. Mm-hmm. And so he'll mail 500,000 people. Everyone who registers for that training is added to my email list. Then I deliver a high value training and offer a deeper dive program. So it's his audience, my product. As revenue comes in, we share that revenue again,
Okay.
because it's his audience, my product. But I would like to point out that even just a basic referral is a type of joint venture. I get, as do my clients, when I show them how to do it, I get 12 to 20 referrals to $1 million plus businesses every week. They're handpicked, warm intros. So that's a very simple way to do joint ventures. And the way to think about it is you're looking for market adjacencies. Who is actively cranking out your ideal clients? So I'd like to use an example of Todd Hartley. He's a friend and client of mine who Tony Robbins hired to train the sales teams for 100 of his companies. And he teaches how to get higher conversion leveraging video. So using video in the sales process. So who is creating his ideal client all day long or working with them or in front of them? Anyone with a sales program, which there's plenty of those out there. Anyone teaching how to become a coach or create online programs or consultants. His product complements those other ones. So if someone's got a program on improving sales, that's a whole community of people that his product will serve. So it's who already has your ideal clients in their communities. I'll use an example kind of from my world where I'm teaching people joint ventures. Another way to put it is my friend Jay Facette term. I got this term from him, but upstream and downstream partners, meaning who is upstream from you. So an example of someone upstream for me would be someone teaching how to build online courses. So if you buy a program on how to build and launch an online course, once you have that course, the course is actually worth nothing until you get it in front of the right audience and they start going through it, getting value from it, buying it. So if someone's teaching course building, the next thing those new course builders need is traffic. They need an audience to get it in front of. So they can pay for ads, but that can be expensive, complicated, and not work well. All of the above are true. They can do content marketing where they're putting out a bunch of content for a year plus to build up a following, or they can leverage joint ventures where they're going to take that product and get it in front of other people's audiences that it is highly complementary to, just like Todd Hartley taking his video training program to the people selling sales programs. Those things are like peanut butter and jelly. They go together really well. So it's helping people identify those adjacencies, then look at who the leaders are in those spaces, who are the big authors in that space, who are putting on the big events in that space. And then looking through your own network, who's connected to those people. Since I've been doing this a while, I'll just go look at my own 5,000 Facebook friends, closest friends ever, all 5,000 of them. And then if there's someone I was looking to connect with or I have a call coming up with, I'll go look at all the common friends we have. Because in that way, you can look through there and go, oh, so-and-so knows this person I'd like to chat with, and you can see about getting a warm intro to them. Because if you reach out to someone cold, I'll give you a quick example again of Todd Hartley. He's on stage with Tony Robbins every 6 weeks for Business Mastery in front of like 30,000+ people. And there's a woman who puts together all of Tony's curriculum and content for those events. And Todd messaged her and said, Tony's program's great, but it's missing something and Charles has it. So she's going to start looking into my work. Now, I guarantee you, if I pinged that woman myself, I would never hear back in my entire life.
Right.
But with Todd, who's got an amazing relationship with her, is on stage with her, part of the productions every 6 weeks. And he told me he's never referred anyone before in the last many years. Now I'll show up at a 6 or 7 on that woman's radar instead of a 0 or a 1. So that's why we always want to work from warm, WFW, work from warm. We work from our warm network and we radiate out.
And so there's a little art to that though, right? I mean, because you can't you can't just show up when you need something.
Oh, that's a fact.
Yeah. So it feels like a lot of people miss that step. Charles, have you found that in your experience?
Oh, of course. I actually did a whole session on it in my JV workshop yesterday in New Orleans, and I'll share one of those tips.
Sure.
It is called the power of the ping. So I'll give a little backstory and then explain how to do this. So I was at an event several years ago having a long conversation with a friend, and 2.5 hours later, we were wrapping it up, and he's like, hey, if I ever come to mind, just ping me. And it struck me so weird. I'm like, well, what if you're at dinner? Or what if you're in a webinar? Like, what do you mean just ping you when you come to mind? And then I was like, I'm going to do that with everybody. So people come to mind for a reason. Maybe you just talked to a friend of theirs. Maybe you booked a ticket to an event that they spoke at last year. Maybe you just bought their book, or a friend recommended their book. Maybe you just got a new piece of tech that they're into. Like, if you got any new toys for
nice.
for the kids listening at home, I'm holding up a model Tesla. When I got my Tesla, I wanted to tell the people friends who also have Teslas, because it's exciting. It's so fun, and it's something to bond over.
Sure.
Again, this could be a professional thing too, but people come to mind because something reminded you of them. And that's a perfect time to just shoot them a little text message, send them a voice note, send them a video. Maybe you thought of a perfect referral connection for them or JV connection. Just ping them, offering the intro or sending the intro where appropriate. And you can do this all the time. At this point, and I certainly wasn't always this way at all. Back in my corporate career, it was nothing like this. But I'll be brushing my teeth in the morning and look down and I've texted 2 people. Or I'm out on my run and I send 3 intros to people through video. And so when you're in touch with folks, it keeps you top of mind. It keeps the relationships warm and fresh. And you don't have to always be in touch about work stuff. You kind of figure out what's appropriate there. But another friend and client of mine, Kane Minkus, I texted him about a new camera I bought. And the reply back was, hey, do you want to be part of this partnership strategy that I had taught him? But it was a JV with Roland Frazier and John Assaraf and Blue and Barry and me. So I ping him about a camera. He invites me to be a featured speaker in a $1 million plus promotion.
So and had you not pinged him, he may not have thought of you for that, even though he was thinking about how to put this, he was working on putting this thing together, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So the power of the ping, when people come to mind, just ping them. It doesn't mean you're going to get roped into some long, crazy conversation. It's just sending a voice memo or a note and just maintaining contact. For any ADHD folks out there, there was a few in the group yesterday that are like out of sight, out of mind. So one of the women who's self-proclaimed as quite ADHD, she made like a little picture collage on her wall of her top favorite people. And then when she sees them, it's a trigger to reach out and connect.
I like the part too, you had mentioned it earlier, sort of when you were going through your list and stuff, of take action. If you can take a quick action right now and get it done, it seems like what you're saying, like this person came into my mind, I could wait till I got done with my run. And the chances that I will remember, for example, that they came in might be way in the distance and I'll never bring it back, but it's here. I can do something right now. It only takes a minute or whatever. I should do it.
Precisely. Like even yesterday, I was teaching the group how to do referrals in a really streamlined way. And I came up with 3 for one of the guys there, and I could have written them down and hoped that I remembered as I head into a super busy work week. Instead, I shot 3 intros right on the balcony of this home and had them sent. Not even taking a task down, like they're done.
It's done. Right. Well, Charles, I do very much appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing so many stories. I mean, we went into so many different things. It was really neat to kind of weave it all together and get to know you a little bit. Before we go, I'm just curious if there's something that you want to say that I didn't ask you about, or you want to leave the audience with, because sometimes I know that I miss things, and I just want to give you an opportunity for something I missed.
Sure. So I'd just say in summary, by prioritizing people and relationships, you will come out further 100% of the time. Plus, life's a lot more satisfying when you have strong relationships. So certain people in your audience may be kind of extroverted and like connecting with people. Other people may not, and it may feel a little strange or awkward, the idea of reaching out to people. So if you're one of the latter ones, simply just set a target of reaching out to one person a day or even two. One of the other presenters who was at the event yesterday, Ryan Parks, he set up a automation based on sunrise to text his mom twice a week to just check in and say hi, because he would forget. And then she replies, "So sweet of you to check in on me," and so nice. But point being, prioritize relationships, have a system to go about it, and just remember, like a voice memo or a quick text, audio or video, you can get it out so fast. Like a 20-second video. "Hey, Mike, just thinking about you. Hope you're having a great day. Love to sync up sometime soon." That was 10 seconds.
Right.
So it just strengthens relationships over time. And it's the polar opposite of showing up just when you need something, which feels completely the opposite of that. It feels very lame. So if you want you personally to have a higher quality of life, the better the relationships you are around you. Ultimately, it's the only thing that matters. I mean, I presume after getting through Maslow's first floor, relationships are the only thing that truly provide value in life. And if you look at people later in life, the possessions mean nothing. It's the relationships.
That's
so
right.
Prioritizing those now, your business will go dramatically further. Your personal life will be better. Everyone wins from it. So prioritize it.
Got it. Thank you for sharing and leaving us with that. If you want to learn more about Charles's expertise in joint ventures and productivity and other things that we didn't really get into, charlesbyrd.com, Byrd.com. Thank you, Charles, so much for being on the show. And for those of you listening, thank you for making time for this podcast today. I encourage you, until the next time we meet, to maximize the greatness that's inside of you and to make your future your property, a property that you are very proud to own. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening to the show. And before you go, I just have 3 requests for you. 1, if you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing or following the podcast on whatever podcast platform you prefer. If you're really into it, leave me a review, write something nice about me, give me 5 stars or whatever you feel is most appropriate. Number 2, I've got a book. It's called Owner Shift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. It's an Amazon bestseller, and I'd love for you to read it or listen to it on Audible or wherever else, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it everywhere. If you're looking for inspiration that will help you unlock your greatness and potential, order or download it today so that you can have your very own copy. And if you get it, please let me know what you think. Number 3, my newsletter. I do a newsletter every Thursday, and I talk about things that are interesting to me, or I give more information about the podcast and the podcast guests that I've had and the experiences that I've had with them. You can sign up for the podcast today at my website, which is my name, MikeMalatesta.com. You do that right now, put in your email address, and you'll get the very next issue. The newsletter is short, thoughtful, and designed to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you.